Hello, this is Blair Stanislao with the Happy Lion Center. Welcome to our podcast, Mystical and Infamous, where we have playful and easy conversations about anything mystical, getting to the heart of all things strange and weird. Join us in a bit of magical tomfoolery, spreading the alchemy of love.
Yeah, so in December this year, I launched an online summit. So these are, the way I'm doing it is pre-recorded. I think that most people do it that way because I can't imagine the headache that it would be to try and do it live. I saw many years ago, there was this summit that was live that Deepak Chopra was like one of the hosts. And I don't remember how I got to it, but because I think it was on the TV, but anyways, it was like a merging of science and I don't know if they actually use the word spirituality, but that's really what it was. It was a consciousness summit is what it was. And
sure,
so he would like interview people, and you'd have a live, but also what you would have then is like, they'd be waiting, like for the summit, you'd actually see the video. They're kind of waiting for people to come and get into the chair. And whereas a pre-recorded one, everything's already set and you get to just watch it whenever you want. So I came up with the title for the summit, which was Charting the Stars. Originally, it started with my love for astrology. And then it actually didn't stick that way. So the title was Charting the Stars, Turning Wishes into Reality, plus predictions for 2024. Okay. So you just reach out to people and you see who responds. And it's such a lesson. And it very much reminds me of teaching. And I'd have 7 classes in a day or 6 or 7 classes, right? And I'd teach the exact same thing in the exact same way. And boy, at the differences in responses, but you get that too, doing this kind of thing. So anyways, I think it was about 17 conversations. And hang on just a second. That was my dog. Okay. So 17 conversations. And that's basically all I give them is the title. I'd like you to participate. This is what we do. And then they either agree or don't agree. And so I got to talk to 17 different people and their thought process around that, essentially that title, right? Which can be anything. That's why you don't want to say all specific exactly what it is.
So how long did they talk with you?
Yeah. What'd you say?
How long did they talk?
Well, I usually booked I booked out an hour, but most of the conversations were under an hour.
Okay.
Most of them were around 30 to 45 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. And so you just get to hear what they think that means and how it applies and what do they do with it with their modality. And it's really interesting. So I had somebody channel, probably more than just one person, but this person came in, it was like, they're already here. Okay. And then when she was talking, it was like, I didn't really have it. Like, I don't know. It wasn't really, that conversation to me wasn't like a fully present in the 3D kind of conversation. It was like, it's very obvious. There were a couple of videos like that where I very clearly, she had told me that, but I could tell that anyways. And then there was another guy too, an older guy. Can you hear the dogs?
Yeah. Well, I heard some sound, but I didn't hear the dogs.
Okay, good. Kenji Kumara. And he is this guy, he lives in North Carolina. I don't remember exactly where he grew up, but he didn't grow up in North Carolina. And he's a spiritual leader is what he is. He helps people to become awakened and walks with them as they go through that journey. And he's older. I don't know exactly how old he is, but I would guess in his late 60s, something like that. And really enlightened and knows just how to articulate things. So it was a really beautiful conversation. But some of those conversations that I had, I kind of came away like, okay, what do I do with that now? Like, okay, because I'm thinking about all the ideas, that we're talking about and how it applies in my life and, how it was already preparing before I even had the interview with them. And yeah, so I definitely had some energy shifts through the whole process.
Wow.
And then you have a time period when you launch it and, you just deal with whatever people need to be able to access it. Like I was telling you earlier that there were one of the people who I just interviewed earlier again today does something called Interspeak, and Jean Adrian is her name, and she has a Turkish following. And I think there were 60 some people from Turkey who had signed up. Well, most of them don't speak English. So one of those things was like, the subtitles aren't working. Can you fix that? So I fixed that. And then another one was like, well, I thought, well, there's 60 some of them. I might as well just translate the whole page, right? So, and that's what it was. And it's, so for me, the whole process of actually doing the summit, yeah, there's some technicalities of things you have to do. But I think the biggest shift for me was an energetic shift. It was like, it was a lot of lessons. Because if somebody sits down and watches all that.
Kind of like all in one clump.
Well, actually what happened was I did a whole bunch of them in 1 week. And then I was running out of internet. I think we had met sometime around there because I wasn't paying for the internet monthly at my office at that point. And because I'd never done this many video recordings. And it got to the point where it's like, okay, no, I have like run out of internet on all of my devices. I literally have no way to have internet. I can't do it at my house because of the dogs and whatever else is here. And yeah, so I had to, and then I started getting like not feeling good. And I knew, okay, I gotta shift this whole thing. Well, being an energy worker like this, I just messaged the ones that were booked for in the future. It was like a week. And I mean, within 45 minutes, almost all of them had responded, oh, sure, no problem. And so I took a break. So I took a week break. And then I went back to it, and it was still good. I mean, it's a learning process about how to do it and how much energy I can put into it. I think I need to schedule in time for me to kind of acclimate to the healing that comes from those conversations.
It's called an energy overload.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
I mean, as wonderful as it is, it still needs time in these dense bodies.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that when I canceled or asked everybody to shift it for a week, actually that was the time that there were other things going on in my life, and I don't remember exactly what they were. One of them was my daughter needed to go shopping for dress clothes for debate. Okay. And I was tired, and I was realizing that I didn't have internet, and I didn't want to have to change it and all that. And I could feel this cold sore coming on. Yeah. And it was earlier in the day, and I was like, oh, that's not just one cold sore. That's like 12. And, kind of cold sore, it's really bad. Right. Yeah. And I tell you, within an hour of me messaging everybody, because most of them had responded by an hour, I could feel that energy in the cold sore. You know how you can feel the tingling, like it's,
Oh, I know.
I'm just going to stir your lip up and make you miserable, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like off like a light.
Wow.
Yeah. That was the first time I'd ever had anything like that. I mean, there've been like a migraine I've had, and I'm like, oh no, I don't like this enough to do a migraine. I don't care that much about it. And then I just drop it energetically. And sometimes I don't have a migraine. Like I just don't have it. So now I'm getting better at, if I feel something like that coming on, I realize, oh no, my body's just saying that's a limit. We've reached that. We're going to do something else. And it literally doesn't matter to me, whatever else it is. It's just not going to be that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And there's a lot of these kinds of summits. I think you could probably find one for any topic.
Well, I just listened to one. I listened to something today that had 4 people, and I think it was like over a period of 5 hours. I don't remember what the thing was called. It was sent to me by one of my Reiki masters, and she had purchased it and was able to listen to it and maybe even participate in it. I don't know. But she sent me that link. She had it for 30 days. So I went in and checked it out.
Yeah.
I think I was working on my taxes.
Yeah.
And so I had that to go on. And William Rand spoke. This guy, Brett Bevel spoke. And he was the one who was doing the Zoom.
Okay.
It was on Zoom, this thing. And then there was get the name, Marquand was her last name. And then the last lady, her first name was Heather. Out of all of them, the one I related to, and I mean, was speaking what I know, it was Heather. And it was interesting. I would like to find out more about her. She's involved in a thing, not event. It's probably an organization called Open to Peace.
Oh, sweet.
I had heard something earlier that said this person had said in responding to one of these speakers that our inner peace leads to world peace.
It does.
Yeah. And I thought, wow, I love the way that was said.
Yeah.
And then this lady talked, and I thought, oh, she's where I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's where I belong. Yeah. I mean, all of it was good. It was very interesting. And each one of them offered a piece of their modality.
Mm-hmm.
William Rand did something with Reiki experience, meditation. This Brett Bevel did a thing with ascended masters. The next one did something else. And then the last one, Heather, I can't remember the other one. She was really good. But Heather did something with, remember when we took Karuna Reiki and we learned about the tones and singing the tones?
Mm-hmm.
Well, she does that.
Oh, okay.
And I don't remember what the thing was called, but those sounds or chants that she did, she called it sound healing. It was, yeah, that's where I want to go.
Yeah, I think almost all of the people I interviewed did something to help the viewer, right? Like it based on the conversation. But yeah, I mean, it's a really great way for people to be able to access this kind of information, because I think that's one of the great things about this current time period and technology where we are. Like earlier today, I was in a class and we were doing energy work, and I think both the teachers and the students were essentially commenting on how many of these kinds of conversations are going on in the world. Okay. But if we take ourselves back, even just 20 years ago.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly didn't know anything about them, but just the fact that it's going out there. So what the teacher was actually saying, and I know this is true, but if you really think about it, yes, we have the ability to broadcast and to like do this podcast or whatever and put our stuff out there, right? We put a video up on the internet and whoever's meant to find it finds it, right? But the thing is that if we're focused on this kind of work that we're doing, which is spiritual growth, right? Connecting with your inner essence, connecting with God, if you will, whatever you want to call it. If that's the message behind it, people resonate with that. And what happens is they get drawn more to that. And then they share with their friends and more and more and more. And so as we are all kind of coming to this ease of access of just that little bit of help from somebody else who says or does something in a special way that resonates with you, we're all essentially raising our vibrations. And as we do that exponentially, the earth, the people of the earth and the earth itself raising its vibration. And what that then does is really kind of, I mean, it really does solve the problems. It's like fixing the issues within yourself. And then what happens is the problems that you're encountering, that let's say that they're a person, somebody's coming who's trouble for you, right? You work on it within yourself. That person doesn't have to know anything about it. But once you shift that energy, then that person just magically doesn't come around. It could be that they move or they got over it or what, it doesn't matter what it is, but they just wind up not being around. And that's because you're resonating more fully with your true essence, right? Like you're resonating more aligned with God, the God source. And if we're all doing that together, it's irrelevant when we do it. It's irrelevant through whom we do it. It's just that we're doing it. And that will help to solve a lot of these problems that people like to focus on,
Which is part of the issue.
Yeah. Oh, it's a huge part of the issue. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But people who like to focus on the problem don't usually like to admit, okay, I need to change my focus, because that's not going to help. Yeah.
Yeah. It begins with my thinking. Yes. Yes. Yeah. This Heather that was talking, she said that that we're coming to a place where the way we've operated in our modalities, all of us, in these last years, has been as independents,
Mm-hmm.
and oftentimes feeling all alone,
Mm-hmm.
and not only not understood, but not wanting to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, we have got to begin the process of including and asking for help. William Rand alluded to that as well when he was talking, that we need to be humble enough to realize we're not the end all be all with the knowledge that we have, and that others do want to join the ranks, but they may not necessarily be in agreement with everything we think and say. And so learning to work together or play together right in the sandbox is tricky. But what's been interesting to me when I listened to that was that's what I've been doing here in Great Falls. I'm leaving, I'm moving on, but there's this little team of Reiki people who very, very independent and separate from one another. Their lives are different. I mean, some of them are from out of town. Some of them are from in town. Some of them have belonged to other groups or have had Reiki other times in other ways. But they seem to be showing up together, looking for something.
Mm-hmm.
And these masters that I've worked with are reaching out, and they're finding connections with other Reiki people, and they're looking for those connections, visiting others, and taking in a seminar one is giving, or stopping by to see why do you do Reiki this way? Who comes to you?
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's kind of strange because that's what I knew, but I didn't know I knew that. I just need to be in community. That's me. And that's my background. That's my Catholic training and all those nuns and their communities. And I've always needed to have community. And so I didn't plan it. I didn't think it. I didn't organize it. It just was happening. So when I heard that today, I felt very affirmed
You
in the
just heard it
direction.
today. Yeah. No, I think community is a huge thing. And I think that has come actually, I don't know what you want to call it, whatever fold, largely after COVID, because since we were so confined, people started to actually acknowledge that community actually makes a difference. It's kind of like, I mean, to be honest with you, I really enjoyed the responses I saw about parents with their kids and how hard it is for teachers to do stuff. I've been a teacher, so I know, right?
Yeah.
I really kind of enjoyed that because oftentimes a teacher's role is downplayed, but
Yes.
it really is important. And a large part of school, if you will, the entirety of school is not the book work. It is not the content they're learning. It is how they're interacting. Yes. And it is so important. It is so, yeah. But I think that confined time where everybody was forced to stay home, and so they were deprived of what they didn't realize that they needed and did so well with. So now they're kind of honoring it more within themselves, and it's on a massive global scale, right? That's why Zoom is okay. Now we're all okay with Zoom.
Yeah. Interesting. I think the seminar thing that you had, how many more of these are you going to do?
I don't know. I think I'll just keep doing them because I really did like it. It does take a lot of work to do it, but now that I've done it once, it's not all brand new. I don't feel like I don't know what I'm doing, but it is a lot of work. And sometimes I've signed up for a couple of them. Basically if you like the topic, you see maybe one or two people you like, then probably you're gonna like the rest of it, right? But to me, they all run them all differently. So mine, I was going to run for about 4 days, but then I wound up running it for a week, largely because the Turkish people, I can't remember why, but I decided to just leave it up for a week. And you can get it later if you want to do that. You don't have to, but and some of these things, it's like, they've got tons of people. They've got like 40 or 70 or whatever. And that's like, frankly, sometimes that's overwhelming. I kind of like them in smaller chunks. But I don't know. I bought one, I think recently here that had about 40 in it, which is a lot. But I mean, sometimes they put it up there live. They say it's live, right? Like yours, you said it was for 30 days. That's reasonable. You just got to remember to go back in there. And that's only 4. That's not that bad. You could watch 4, no problem. But, when you got 40 or 100 and something, and it's like, oh, I don't know. That's too much. That's too many people, I think, personally. But it's a wealth of knowledge. You wonder what?
There's a meeting. They kept promoting it today. Omega. Are you familiar with Omega back east? But they're going to be, it sounded like all 4 of these and then many more were going to be a part of that. But that was an in-house one. I mean, you had to go to it.
Oh, like a live one.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So you have to be there.
Oh, I have to tell you, I went to Scientists, Mystics, and Sages, and I think it was in November of 2019, and it was in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And we drove down there. Had took the lady I was working with, actually the reason that the business is named Lion. So we went down there, and it was interesting because, I knew about 3 or 4 of the people that were I had already seen their work. I was familiar with who they were. So there was one guy that I had not heard of who was really, really popular. And so I looked his stuff up and I listened to it. I liked it, and whatever, that's fine. I didn't really care. I just knew that there were some of them there that I really wanted to see, and I knew I wanted to do it. So we went down there, and I'll give you an example of how this energy work can be. So anytime anybody, I've had 2 Reiki classes now, like actual multiple people, right? And I asked some of the older students to say, hey, do you want to come? I'm going to give a class. It's always a great experience, and you end up bonding with the people, and it's just really great. So they came, and of course it was like that. And, I think that these in-person kind of summits are very similar to that. So the summit started, I don't know what time, 8 or 9 or something, started in the morning. We were there literally like 11 hours later. Now we took breaks for eating. They encouraged us to go outside. We took breaks, but we had 1,200 people. So at one point they led a meditation, which is really hilarious because this was the first meditation. It was this guy that everybody knew that I didn't know. And he's leading. It's actually, oh my gosh, he's a chiropractor who broke his back and then healed it. He's on Gaia TV. I cannot remember his name. Placebo effect guy. Anyways, he led this meditation. And of course I know how to do this. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. And so he's talking, and he has his way of doing it, which I don't particularly love, but it was funny because I was totally fine. And then we go to the meditation. All of a sudden I feel completely compulsive need to cough. Like I couldn't stop coughing. And then they mentioned something about well, that's your conscious mind trying to not let you go here, whatever. And that was fine. But we went to Greg Braden did a heart math technique. So heart math is a little measurement tool. And I actually bought some heart math equipment, but it's really awesome. But he demonstrated that. And so he's saying that, and he's leading us how to do it. And I'm like, oh yeah, this is Reiki. Okay, all you have to do is say Reiki. That's just one word. We got it. No problem. Right. And it was really interesting to watch my friend who I was there with kind of talk about this experience, because for me, because I was familiar with a lot of these speakers and their ideas and things, it's like, yeah. Oh, this is good. This is like a remembering. It's a confirmation of the stuff that we talk about. But for her, it was kind of new, right? But it was interesting to watch her go through that. But we go through 11 hours one day, and we feel totally fine. And I tell you, if you were at an 11-hour event for, let's just call it work, any other kind of work that's not this, you feel like you want to die. Like your body just aches, right? But this was not like it, not at all. I mean, we actually, I think they watched a movie. And I was like, I don't think I want to watch the movie. I've already seen that movie. I'm ready to go back because we had to drive somewhere, right? But it was really interesting, the difference in Reiki classes are like that too. It is a long time, but you really feel good when you leave there. I don't find it, even this last time, I think, because one of the people in the group is older. She's like mid-70s, right? And she was tired. But it wasn't like she felt bad. It wasn't like she was exhausted. She was tired. And I kind of noticed that too. Of course, with the sun going down really early and so forth. But um, it's a very different experience, dude. When you research or you talk about or you listen to or you watch videos on this kind of topic versus if you're, let's say, reading something about computers or you're reading something about hunting or whatever it is that you're interested in, it does drain your energy more.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this has been very, very interesting because what is the difference among workshops, seminars, podcasts, um, uh, any other words that difference?
Well, I think it's just nuances. It's very similar to when we talk about like whatever modality you use, right? Like whatever method you use. If you're talking about psychic connection or whatever, there are different tools that you use, but it's just a tool, right? Like they're all tools, right?
Yes.
So I think the same thing with this stuff. It's essentially they're just vehicles to get the information out there. And so it's kind of like, well, what shoe fits you best? Like
but the information must be different for these different ways of approaching an event. Okay. Whether it's a seminar or whether it's a workshop or whether it's a training, there must be a different emphasis for the things that you get the information out there.
Yeah, I think like the podcast, okay, if you think about what kinds of people listen to podcasts, those are people who are interested in having genuine conversations, like, I would say they're probably less likely than the mass of humans to be distracted by things. Not that they don't get distracted, they're still humans, but they're more interested in a full conversation, right? And then you've got it's a shift too, because some people are putting it out on video, podcasts out on video, because it actually reaches more people because people like videos, right? They like to be entertained. They want to see who you are, who's talking. But it is a different energy. Actually, the astrologer I interviewed, his show was coming out at the end of this month. He actually articulated really well in a way that I liked it, which was I kind of like the podcast because I don't want to be on the camera all the time, right? Like audio, I'm more interested in the content and what somebody's saying. Plus, I can be having it in my ear and doing something with somebody else if I have to, or doing a task or, a chore or something. But and I said, well, we could videotape it if you want because it's more popular. And he's like, no, it makes a lot of sense because you actually it's like reading a book versus watching a movie. If you read a book, your mind has the limitless potential as to what you can create in your mind. Whereas you watch a movie, then let's say it's a fish, they've created a fish that you're watching a fish. So now you're kind of limited in that way of perceiving it. Whereas a podcast doesn't necessarily do that. If you listen to a radio and you kind of imagine what the speaker looks like, most of the time you're wrong, That's what I found anyways. But I think it's just like nuances in terms of what works for people, like what suits their interest. And there's just so many things available out there.
Yeah.
To be able to get that. And it's exciting to know that it is reaching a lot of people and we are kind of collectively improving the vibration and things. I think people who do this stuff really do have hope for the world.
Oh, I don't have any doubt about the sincerity of the people that are involved in this boogly world.
Yeah.
And that is from very, very basic info to the huge experiential spirituality that some have provided for us. I don't doubt their sincerity. I really don't. I don't know who the con people are in there, and I imagine there are some, but I do believe with all my heart that those people I listen to today believe every word they say and they practice what they preach. Perfectly? No, we're all human.
Yeah.
But they do it with an integrity and a sincerity there that I appreciate.
Yeah. And I can remember being at that conference in Santa Fe, and I think it was Greg Braden who was saying it. He basically kind of referenced, if somebody dragged you here, meaning like a spouse, right? Or a friend or something, and they welcomed all the questions. So probably a lot of the questions, I would say probably a good quarter, maybe even a third of the questions because they would have opportunities where you get up, go to the microphone and ask the question. We're from people like that. Like their spouse was into this thing or their friend or whatever was really into this, but it didn't really compute. Like they hadn't had time to kind of process all that. And so they welcome those kinds of conversations. But that's where we spread our it's not just the people who are interested in this. It's the people who are on the edge. And, they can kind of recognize they like you. They're with you. They came to this trip with you. Obviously, they like you. So there's something about you that they like. And now you're going to expose them to something that's helpful. That's the way I kind of feel like when I got dragged to church, I was like, well, what's the big deal? I don't mind being dragged to church. Whatever. We can go to your church. That's fine.
I remember this was years and years ago, my friend Sandy. I talked her into going to one of these contemplative experiences to learn how to breathe and focus in that kind of prayer-like way. And I just remember after the first round, which was probably about 15 minutes, she turned to me and she said, "You owe me."
Yeah.
Now we had 2 more hours, I think, to go.
Mm-hmm. I bet it made a shift for her, I bet.
Well, of course she's shifted through the years.
Yeah.
But she just approaches things very, very differently than me.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate that. It keeps my feet down on the ground and makes me think. It challenges how I approach things. And it'll be from that very practical woman, she will say things, really? Just how does that work?
I just keep waiting for those things. Like, my family, they know that I'm into this stuff, but they haven't jumped in the whole tub. But sometimes they'll ask me questions and I find it really funny because they'll ask a question and it's almost like they're not baiting me. They don't turn around and make fun of me anymore per se, but they know what kind of answer they're going to get.
Yeah.
And of course I just give it to them. They're my family. I'm just going to tell them what I think. But it is interesting to watch that. And what I have noticed, especially with my children, is that through the years, because when they were young, before my other husband died, I'm not saying that I wasn't into this. I didn't know any of this because I did, but I certainly didn't have a vehicle to talk about it. Like I didn't have anybody else to talk to about it. It was all through the lens of the church. And then you have all the stipulations, all that kind of stuff. And so they've seen me in 2 different ways. And what's funny is that when they have a time when I can tell when it's really, really important, because when it's really important to them, then they ask the open-ended question and they listen to the whole answer.
Yeah. Yeah. They kind of know when they're ready to talk about or have you talk with them about stuff. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're there for. Like you said, just to walk with people.
And love them. If I haven't learned anything from Reiki and all of this healing work, because Reiki is more than the healing work. Mm-hmm. It is much more than that. Mm-hmm. But that is a huge piece of it, at least for me in the way I practice Reiki. Mm-hmm. But Reiki, to me, defines love. It is when I feel judgy or opinionated or going about something, I realize that I have to stop and go, but I love them. Yeah. So what are you hammering away on this for? It's such a petty little thing. It doesn't matter because basically you love this person. You love them. Mm-hmm. And when I feel really strong about somebody and I don't like their behavior, I have to remind myself, I love you. I love you. Yeah. Because that is the energy that changes the world.
It is. It really is. And I think we get lost in even me, I was thinking, I have a sister who was very difficult for me. I mean, I don't know that I'd say she is now because I don't really talk to her that much, but definitely was a huge learning lesson throughout my life. And now as I keep doing this work, I'm realizing, oh, wait, there's a whole lot of stuff there I didn't deal with, right? When I was younger. So now it's time for me to deal with it. But, like it didn't even occur to me until just last week. Like, okay, now I need to send her love. As a child, though, I do distinctly remember if we were somewhere playing with other people and if somebody were to do something that was not nice to her, each one of us would always stand up for the other people. So it's like we knew that,
Yep.
we knew that was, okay, that's the boundary. I can be mean to her or we can argue or whatever, but no, you can't do that because it's crossing the line.
My family.
Yeah. 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 I always
Yeah.
found that really interesting because of the conflict that we had. It was not, it was like, it never ceased. There was never, it was two conflicting personalities, but yet when it really came down to the real important stuff, there was no question about, are we going to help each other or what have you? So, yeah. Yeah. It's really
I had an interesting experience with my grandson. Cedric is very open to me sending him Reiki, and when I'm there, I give him Reiki. He lives over on the West Coast. Anyway, he is a student of UFO fighting. He's been in martial arts since he was little, and he is working toward being a pro fighter.
Oh wow!
And so he has. Yeah, people are all over the place on and with their opinions about that. So I'm not talking about him being UFO.
Is that something fighting organization?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's jiu-jitsu and things like that.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's it's contact sport.
Mm-hmm.
And very contact but anyway, bottom line to the thing is I send him Reiki and I send it every day. I started doing that when he had hurt his knee in one of his events. Yes. And this was before he was old enough to begin the process to go pro. Anyway, he has done nothing but dedicate himself to that gym and to the workouts that he has to do to be in the best physical shape he can be to do this kind of fighting and to get to where he has dreamed for years to be. Yeah. Anyway, so I send him Reiki every night to keep him safe, to keep him protected, to love him. I bathe him in that. And so I send him Reiki every night. And he knows that. And not too long ago, he said, I think it was last summer, he said to his dad, I think she's doing something wrong because I'm not feeling it. And so Sean says to me, Cedric says he thinks you're doing it wrong. And I said, you tell that boy I'm sending it every night. And then I got to thinking, I had shifted on him and I was sending him a different energy. Deliberately. I had decided to go in another direction with him, but I had not ever educated him into that.
Yeah.
I'd never told him. And he felt the difference. So after his fight this last week, which he won, I texted him and congratulated him and that kind of thing. And he said, Lola, I felt the energy.
Cool.
Yeah. So, it's there. And he's learning how to meditate and how to focus inwardly for the preparation for a fight.
Yeah, I think I've been in what they call the zone a couple of times when I play sports. And it is, I can even remember, here we are 20 some years later, right? I can remember the moments, right? And I think it's actually, I think oftentimes exercise is very similar to meditation, especially when they're not learning new things. As a matter of fact, there have been times where something energetic in this past year or so, something energetically happened and I was so mad about it, really. That's what it was. I didn't want to sit around. So I went to the gym and I was like, I'm going to meditate. So here I am angry. I'm going to meditate. I don't care if it's stupid to do it while I'm exercising, right? But it works. It really works.
Yeah. Well, it raises the good endorphins in the body. And you can't tell me that isn't what meditation's all about.
Yeah. Well, I even mean I was still exercising. So I was still present with whatever activity I was doing. But my intention was with meditation. So anytime I got an opportunity where I could listen to it and think about those ideas, which means I wasn't concerned with falling down or breaking something, right?
Right.
So that's some of the time, right? But even that some of the time it really did, it shifted the energy really easily. And I could just tell, I mean, I didn't feel like like a thump, like you just rolled off a step or something, but within the time that I did that, it was a clear, okay, I'm fine now. I don't need to go punch a punching bag, or I don't need to yell at anybody or anything like that. So
it would really be interesting if you did a seminar of some kind with athletes in that whole understanding of being in the zone.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting.
Yeah, that would be. And actually, so my high school volleyball coach, she was a different level than what had been there previously. Previously, it was like PE coaches, Okay. And then, but she had played in college. I don't know where she came from. I don't really remember where she was from, but she wasn't in like the school system. So she just happened to be somebody who she actually taught swimming, and, she was still very physically active and so forth. And, so anyways, they hired her, and she came in, and it was the greatest thing in the world to me, because like she really knew what she was talking about. And through the course, I think it was maybe my junior year, possibly my senior year. So I was with her, I think, 3 years. So second or third year, she decides to bring in this guy who does hypnosis. And we all went down to the classroom underneath the gym, and we did whatever, like we laid on mats and we did whatever he said. And I remember I was like drooling. It was to like wake up and like wipe my whole mouth. Like, I hope nobody sees me, But I guess that was probably my first introduction to like being aware of being hypnotized. So yeah. And it comes through athletics. I mean, she was doing that because we were two in our heads, Yeah.
Yeah. We got a ways to go in, all of us in our modalities, to get out of there.
Yes.
Send inquiries, suggestions for new discussion topics, and comments to podcast@happylioncenter.com. That's podcast@happylioncenter.com. If you found this content enjoyable or helpful, please comment, like, share, and download. Donations are appreciated and help us to produce more of similar content. Consider making a contribution at the links in the description box. Your support is greatly appreciated. The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the Happy Lion Center, and are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual, or anyone or anything. None of the content provided should be considered a substitute for legal, financial, medical, psychiatric advice, or as care from a certified professional.